at that conference, and when I was thinking about what I was going to share with them, God said, teach them about leadership. And I asked him, what is the best definition of leadership that I can give them? And he said, how did Jesus define leadership? So who knows how Jesus defined leadership? He said, according to Jesus, leadership is servanthood. According to Jesus. And as leaders, I really believe that if there's anybody we should emulate, even if you don't want to believe in God, even if you don't want to be called born again, if there's someone that we can really emulate his character and the way that his principles and the way that he dealt with the people around him, I would say that person is Jesus. He's such a selfless human being, and if you're looking for an example of a leader, that is your guy. Yes, Jesus is a guy. So when we talk about leadership and how to get your people in sync with the vision of the team or the organization or the nation, one tool that you use is what? Is what? Communication. You have to share your ideas, you have to share the things you have to say to them. And being a leader is like being a bus conductor. So just like a bus conductor, he tells intending passengers where the bus is headed to, he collects fares and gives back balances, and he helps the driver and the passengers know where to alight and where to get in and all that. That is the same way that a leader provides direction for his team. He manages the affairs of his team members within that dynamic. And he also carries everyone along. So what are we doing this week? What are we doing next month? What is our goal for next year, for the next 5 years, for the next 3 years? And as leaders, we should begin now. We should begin now to cultivate our ability to share our ideas and to be able to carry people along. So when we talk about leadership and communication, you have to think like a bus conductor. So I wanted to ask, think helps the bus conductor to run his ship effectively? Effective communication, I've said that. So 2 words, effective communication. If he doesn't hit on the bus on time, the driver will go past that bus stop. And it has happened to some people. The unfortunate passenger had to be dropped at the next bus stop, so he or she had to walk back. If he does not effectively tell the passengers the fares that they are taking for that route, there are probably fights in the bus. And I'm still working out of it, but I'm usually prepared for a fight with the conductor. Whether one comes up or not, but I'm usually prepared because they are usually looking for trouble. So the other thing about his ability to communicate is that when he's at the bus stop, he doesn't shout, "You have Nababa Obiago, you have Nababa Obiago." He doesn't do that. If he does that, what is going to happen? The intended passengers are going to be confused, like, dude, where are you going to exactly? Because he calls one place, so anybody that is passing through that route knows this is the bus I should enter. But the most important question I want us to ask today is, how can we as leaders learn to share our ideas, communicate our vision, communicate the strategies I want to use and the processes we want to follow to our team members? And the way to do that is by every time you get a chance to communicate or to make a presentation, and a presentation, anytime you get a chance to communicate, whether you are heading a meeting, you're facilitating a team meeting, or you're speaking in a conference like this, or you probably go online to do live broadcast on your Facebook. Yourself one question. What is the most important thing that I want my audience to get at the end of my presentation? What is the most important thing? I'll tell you why that is important. At the end of your presentation, 1 hour after you have spoken to people, just like the keynote speaker, 1 hour after he has spoken to us, just like in in about 12 p.m., each of us, we are averagely going to remember just half of what he said. His research studies are proving that. We're going to remember just 50%, 1 hour afterwards. Then by tomorrow, we are going to remember 25%. That means we're going to remember just a quarter of what he shared with us. Don't worry, it's not a fault of yours, it's not a fault of mine. We are not stupid people. We wouldn't choose to forget. I mean, he shared a lot of vital information, right? But that is just how it is with us. Move out of here. Some of you, you're thinking about what you're going to eat at lunch. Some of you are thinking about what you're going to eat tomorrow. You're thinking about money that you need to buy something that is very important to you. You have your family issues, you have friends, you have other things that you are passionate about. So they all come and you just have one brain. So at every point in time, your brain is bringing up what do you really need to know right now, focused on right now. And that is why we tend to forget. But by the time we are getting to the 3rd day to the 7th day, that is 1 week after you have been in this conference, each of us, according to research, are going to be remembering just about 10% of what we heard. 10%. So that tells you that if you have a team and you want to do something in the organization, you want to probably move the nation in the right direction or whatever, and you pull your people together, idea with them, your vision, just something you need to be coming on time, you need to be doing this, blah, 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 blah. After 1 week, they'll remember just what? 10%. What makes communication effective or oral is that people take action based on the information that you give them. If you deliver a speech that people do not take any form of action, they don't change the way they feel about the topic you spoke on, or they do not acknowledge that wasn't there before you spoke, you have not delivered an effective communication. You haven't done that. So what communication effective is that you move people to action. And people are going to take action on what you share with them. So if I don't remember, I am one going to act on it. Therefore, when we talk about communication, you want to ask yourself, what is the most important thing that my audience need to know for them to take action after my presentation? What is the most important thing? For the bus conductor, it is the route. It is where they are going to. I came from Ababa, so if I came from Ababa through New Heaven, so the bus conductor that is saying New Heaven, that is the first thing, that is the most important thing. We are going to New Heaven. You're not going to New Haven, this is not the bus for you to enter. The fare, the price of moving you from Ababa to New Haven is secondary. If you get to a bus stop and the conductor is there shouting, 17 naira, 100 naira, 17 naira, 100 naira, you'll be thrown off because you don't even know where he's going to, or you can even enter at 17 naira. Let me just enter, and then all of a sudden you find yourself going towards Osoka. So for the bus conductor is the destination. When you have the opportunity to give a presentation or make a Facebook or Instagram, ask yourself the question, what is the most important thing that I want my audience to take out of this that will help them to take action based on what I've shared with them? And in speaking, the major thoughts. So once you have decided on the topic of your presentation and you decide on the goal or the objective of that presentation, the next thing is to ask yourself, what is the most important thing that I want them to remember days and years afterwards? I'm going to give you an example. I'm speaking. Let me not use my speech. Let me use somebody else's. So still you have been invited to speak at a women's conference, and you've been invited to speak on the topic working women or leading women. Let me start, leading women. And the objective of your speech, now the topic is leading women. The objective of your speech is to persuade or convince the women in your audience to actively begin to contribute to the development of the society. That is what you want. You want at the end of your presentation for them to be like, okay, what can I do? How can I start working? Like we have ladies here, how can I start doing something to help build the society that I'm a part of? Now your major thoughts can be, every woman can help her children to become a force in the society. That is your major. You're going to remember 10% of everything that you said. At least they should remember that part, that can help her children become. Now, if you get it right, you should beg the question, how? If you get your major thought right, you should beg the question, well, how can I do that? How can I, as a woman, help my children become a force in the society? That's when you now begin to share your main points for your speech. And those main points will be to convince the women to start doing something, that the result they will get is their children become. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? I want that, means I don't have to do want my children to be a force in society. So you want to think, what is that thing? If they remember, to help them to remember your main points. Because everything we hear stays in our minds, even though we do not always remember. There are things that have happened in your life 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that you may not remember right now. But say in 2 years' time, something can trigger it. You can meet a senior in secondary school that bullied you the hell up. And then all of a sudden, you remember all the things that the senior student did. So I understand that dynamic. But now you don't think about it. It doesn't affect me in any way. But once you get, maybe your brother comes on one day with a lady he or she wants to marry, and it's that senior. So everything that you hear stays in your mind. The question is, how easy will you be triggered? That is the main thing. So you want to craft your major thought so that your audience can be easily triggered for them to remember. So when they remember that major thought, they remember the rest of everything else. Some people, when they share how to present effectively, they quote statistics and all that. Now, those things are important for your presentation. But if you tell a story that does not relate to your point and doesn't help you to help your audience remember of your presentation, you have failed. So if I remember a funny story, joke that you told 5 years from now, I can laugh. But that joke may not really help me to remember the most important part of your presentation. Do we get that? Yeah. So when we question, you have a presentation to give, and we ask the question, what is the bottom line of your presentation? What is it all about? Your major thought. Now, I'm sure you're going to be asking, how do I create my major thoughts? Right? Now, the first thing that I want you to take note is that your major thought, like I said, is what you want. Your audience remembers 10%. So you remember that major thought as the 10% residual message. The residual message is the message that remains long after. But there's a step before you get to that residual message. And the first step is to ask yourself, what is my intended message? What do I really want them to get? Now, everything that you share in your presentation, from the introduction, the body, and the should help you to deliver that intended message. So at the end of your presentation, it's important that the actual message that your audience gets is the same as the message you intended. If there's a disparity, then there's a very big chance you would not have convinced them. When you think about that message, there are two formulas that I want to share with you today on how to create your major thought. The first one is that, could you move down my slide so they see? So the first thing that you do is every dash, can you write that? Every dash, that's space. Every dash can / need dash to dash. Please pull it up so that they see. Just keep going. Okay, here. Dash can / just copy that. Dash, then the subject of your talk or the results that you want your audience, that you believe your audience are going to get at the end of your presentation. If they act on what you tell them to act on. For instance, our keynote speaker have told us about how to cultivate values for leadership. If we have heard it today, if we now go on and nobody buys a book, we don't read, we don't attend conferences, we don't try to be humble and all that, but the prayer that is prayed is not going to work on yourself, on you. There's no way around that. So you want to take action. You want to take action on what they have taught you. You want to ask yourself every dash, and that dash, you think about your audience. Who are you speaking to? So every leader, every woman, every young person, every working professional. So who are you speaking? That is what is going to be there. Every dash is your audience. Let's take the can part of that equation. Can do what? Can have what? Can be what? So every woman can help her children become a force in the society. So this time around, what a woman can do. Every leader can deliver a memorable and convincing presentation by first of all clarifying and creating their major thoughts. So every dash can do what? You talk about what they can do. If it has to be a person, if you're presenting on, say, finances and saving or making investment, you can say that every worker, every paid worker can start up, or every paid worker can own an investment portfolio. Every paid worker. So whether you are paid 5,000, 50,000, 500,000, you can have an investment portfolio, no matter how much you earn. And then during the body of your presentation, you tell them how that is possible. How that is possible. So every dash topic of your presentation, or you talk about the results that they will get if they follow what you have shared with them. Now let's talk about the need. That part we can say every dash again need to what? Every leader in your position need to be able to sell their ideas and themselves effectively to senior management. It begs the question, how can I do that? It also begs the question, why should I care about selling myself to senior management? So that helps you structure your speech as well, so that you are telling your audience what they need to hear. The second formula that I want to share with you is the best way, the best time, the best manner, or the most effective way to do something is so and so. The best way to cultivate values for leadership is by reading books. That can be a premise or central idea or major thought for your presentation. The best way, the most effective way, and I give some examples. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. Now, when you're creating your major thought, one thing you should note is that it should be a single sentence. So it's not a paragraph, just one sentence. If it's longer than one sentence, then it's too long. The second thing is that it should be a full sentence. So it's not half-broken. If you remember your English, we have phrase and we have clauses. So it should be a full clause. And it should not be a question. So can women help society is not a major thought. Your major thought should not be a question, it should be a statement. And it should be a declarative statement. 1, it should be single. 2, it should be full, complete. And 3, it should be a declarative statement. What do I mean by that? A declarative statement is a statement that shows the certainty of your point of view. I'm often asked, how can I get my audience to believe in what I'm saying? Because I help people overcome stage fright. And one of the concerns is, oh, what if they don't believe me? What if I'm not able to convince them? What if they don't agree with what I'm saying? And I always tell people, if you want people to trust in your ideas, you have to first of all trust that the idea works yourself. When you trust that, the way that you deliver it is going to definitely be convincing. When we stammer, or we use a lot of what we show is that we do not really trust what we are saying. We are not really sure. We are not certain. So when you're creating your major thoughts, you want it to be declarative. Every worker, every paid worker can have an investment portfolio. That is a declarative statement. It's your point of view. They don't have to agree with it, but that is why you are doing their presentation. You want to convince them to agree with you. So it should be a declarative statement. When you have pulled everything together, when you have decided on what your major thought is, of course you ask the question how. So that how will guide you as you develop your main points. And this is really key. Sometimes when we have a presentation to give, let me know when my time is up. When we have a presentation to give, we're often given like 30 minutes. The last time I spoke for 15 minutes. And somebody recorded that. Is Choma here? She recorded that and she sent me later. She told me, you did not pass 20 minutes. I think I had 20 minutes when I came, but I was still 15. So she said, you did not pass 20 minutes. Like at 19 minutes, I was like, yes, I did it. Because one thing about being a leader is that you have to walk your talk. And if you teach people about staying within their time, you should be able to stay within your time. But that is difficult because this microphone, it has some juju in it. I'm not a talker, I'm an introvert, I'm very quiet, very reserved, but something happens when I pick up the microphone. I mean, I'm even sick right now. But once I start teaching, everything just like something else. Magic. Just takes over. So it's very difficult, which is why when you are preparing your presentation, you want to be mindful of the time that you have. If you are given 5 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 or 1 hour, you want to put just about the points that you can cover in that time. I'm always amazed when a speaker has 30 minutes and he or she has 30 points. Like, you want to change water to wine? What happens is that when they start speaking, they forget they have 30 minutes. So they dwell point 1, 2, and 3. By the time they are in the 4th point, just like Gideon brought a paper, they'll bring a paper, so they have 5 more minutes. They'll now start rushing. Now, when you rush, it's difficult for your audience to follow. So they don't understand. And if they don't understand, it will be hard for them to remember. And if they cannot remember, they will definitely not act. Which means your presentation was ineffective. So when you have decided on what your main points are going to be, you then craft what are the points that will help me to drive this major thought home and keep it in the minds of my audience. And depending on the time, you can have just one main point. You don't have to have 10, you can just have one. There are so many things I could have taught you when it comes to presentation, but I just teach you one thing. Because I want you to get this one thing, and then we can talk about how you can get more some other time. But get this one thing. What's the point of teaching you everything and you get nothing? When you have decided on the main points, you also need your major thought to guide you. So when you're delivering your presentation, you want to make sure that from the introduction through your main points in the body of your speech to your conclusion, you are stating that major thought. You may not state it verbatim, but you can imply it. You can say it in different ways. But at the end of the day, you want to keep repeating it. In communication, as with interacting with human beings, people remember the first thing and the last thing more. So we call it the law of first and the law of recency. The first thing you say and the most recent thing they experience. So you want to start your major thought, you want to imply it or say it verbatim in the first. Immediately you start your speech in the introduction, you also want to talk about it throughout your delivery, and you want to talk about it in your conclusion. Just like Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, which is a book I recommend, by the way, he said that any idea, plan, or purpose can be placed in the mind through the repetition of thoughts. I had, in my secondary school, primary secondary school, junior secondary school, I wasn't really good at maths. Primary school, I didn't know that because I wasn't really making any efforts, but I was doing well in school. But by the time I got to junior secondary, I realized that I was bad in mathematics. I mean, I was barely passing maths. I remember even getting about, I think, an F in mathematics one term. I prayed to God my father didn't see that. But by the time I entered SS1, we had a new mathematics teacher. She was, let me borrow Professor Patrick Tommy's words, vertically challenged. And I'll tell you her name because I'm really proud of her. Her name is Mrs. Osisio. She was a beautiful woman, smart and intelligent. And every morning, every day that Mrs. Osisio had us, she would walk into the class and she teaches, she always use one sentence. She never misses to say that. And she has diastema. That is the gap you have in your front tooth. So she would say rather, girls, open your eyes and learn math. And her tongue would just fit nicely within that place. We always remember that. So sometimes when she starts saying it, we'll help her to finish it. Now when she says, girls, open your eyes and learn math, what Mrs. Shaw implied by that statement was, if you take your time and apply your mind and give it time, you're going to learn mathematics. It's not that difficult. And because of that, and because of the repetition, every class she took, every time she came into class, she made that statement. Personally, I started working on my mathematics after class. So I was a boarding student, so during an afternoon prep, during break time, and even during night prep sometimes, I would work on my maths. I got so good that I started teaching my class members, some of them. So imagine by that repetition and by knowing what she really wanted to achieve with her students, not just to teach them numbers, not just to teach them formulas or sums, but so that they can begin to have a love and a passion and to begin to enjoy the process of learning mathematics. She put that in one sentence, she repeated it every time, every class, every session, every topic. Girls, open your eyes and learn math. And so, as I bring things to close, when you have a presentation to make, remember that your audience are going to remember just 10% of everything that you say to them, just a week afterwards. So you want them to remember one point, the most important part of your speech, that will help them to remember afterwards. When you do that, then you are sure that you have begun the first step to delivering a presentation that will be both convincing and memorable. Now, the first step I would ask you to take is, first of all, think about a speech, whether one you have in the future or you just come up with one. When I work with clients, I always tell them, imagine you have a presentation to give. Think of a topic, think of an audience, think of your goal for that presentation and then create a major thought and walk through that, create a speech. Money pies, get in front of a mirror and practice. Once you start doing that, you're going to get better at communicating. And I always say that communication is a tool of leadership. And when you speak, you should ensure that your speech does not detract from your leadership. Instead, you should add to it. Thank you so much.